write a pair of integers whose sum gives, and then we have 5 different things. So first thing is write a pair of integers whose sum gives a negative integer. Let's solve the first one. We need to find a negative integer when we add any two integers. It should give us negative integer. The easiest one is if we add two negative integers, we are going to get the answer as negative integer. For example, if I add -4 and -3, these two integers, so -4 plus -3 is equal to -4 plus minus, different signs result into minus. Minus minus means it is addition. 4 plus 3 is 7, and the sign of the greater number, which is 4, minus. So we get answer -7. So if we add any two negative integers, we are definitely going to get the negative integer. So that is the easiest one. We have more solutions to that. For example, if I have a positive integer +4, then what I need to do is I need to add another negative integer whose weight is more than the positive integer. So weight of this positive integer is 4. So I take another integer whose weight is more than this and sign is opposite. So I take +4 and -5. Let's say +4 plus -5. So what I get is +4 plus minus results into -5 plus and minus here, which means it's a subtraction. So if I do subtraction, 5 minus 4 is equal to 1 here, and the sign of the greater number, which is 5 here, so sign is -1. So I get a negative integer. So these are the two ways to find two integers whose sum gives negative integer. The second one is 0, and that's very obvious. We know that a number and its additive inverse always gives 0. So we do not need to go further and discuss anything. If we want sum to be 0, it has to be the number and its additive inverse. So let's do the third one. We need to get an integer smaller than both the integers. So when we add both the integers, this result has to be smaller than them. In this case, we need to have, so let's say I take one integer. If I take one integer, which has to be smaller than that, let's say I take positive integer and I add a positive integer, I'm going to go right. So I'm not going to get a smaller, I'm going to get a greater one. So I can't use add a positive integer. If I add a negative integer, let's say I add -3. -3 means I have to move towards left 3 houses. So I have +2 and -3. So I start from +2, I go 1, 2, 3, I reach -1. But -1 is not smaller than -3. -1 is actually greater because we have to move to right. So greater than -3. So we cannot use this. So what we need to do? We need to take a negative integer. Let's say I take a negative integer, -2, and I add to that another negative integer, -1. Okay, so because I have to add -1, I have to go left. So I give one house to the left, and I get answer -3. Now you know that -3 is smaller than -2 as well as smaller than -1. So the answer for our third one is that if we want to get integers smaller than both integers after the sum, both the integers have to be negative integers. So then it's very easy. So both the integers have to be negative integers. So what we can have? -3, -4, -5, -11. So we take any two negative integers. Their sum is going to be always smaller than both the integers. We'll do the fifth one first. We want to take an integer greater than both the integers. So in this case, it is obvious that if I want the integer to be greater than both the integers, I have to take both positive integers. Because if any of them is a negative integer, I am going to move towards left. For example, let's say I take -1 and +5. So if I take -1 and +5, so I start at 5, I have to go one house towards left because it is -1. Okay, if I take 5 and -3, again I have to move 3 places to left. And when I move left, I'm going to get a smaller answer than my starting point. So I cannot use the negative integer. So I have to have all the positive integers. So if I have used, let's say, I take first integer is 1 and I take the second integer as 3 plus 3. Then what I have to do is 1, 2, 3. I get answer as 4. So I took integers as 1 and plus 3 and my answer is plus 4. Plus 4 is greater than plus 3, yes. Plus 4 is greater than plus 1, yes. So to get an integer greater than both the integers after the sum, we need to have both the integers positive integers. Now we know to get an integer smaller than both the integers, we need to have both negative integers. So we want smaller than, then both should be negative integers. We want greater than, then both the integers should be positive. Now we want an integer which is smaller than one integer and greater than other. That obviously means that we want one negative and one positive. Any of the numbers. So one number should be negative and one should be positive. So let's take an example. Number line is a great tool to explain these patterns. Okay, so let's take one negative number. Let's say I took negative number -3 and I took positive number as +5. +5. So I start from -3 and I have to move 5 houses. So I start from -3 and 5 houses. Which side? Positive side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I move to 5. So my number which I get is 2. And my initial numbers -3 is here and 5 is here. And now we can see 2 is between -3 and 5. So 2 is greater than one of the numbers, which is -3, and smaller than the other number, which is 5. So when we have one positive integer and one negative integer, their sum always gives the answer which is in between them.